Everybody, it's Anti again. Wanted to record an update video about the build, where it's going, and where I see it going towards the more end game. Right now, I'm in tier 4 maps, as you can see on the right. I have done some tweaking to the build, and I say tweaking because there's a lot of mechanics that seem to be overlapping, and I don't know if some of these mechanics that I'm about to bring up, or at least one of them, is going to get nerfed in the future. So some of you in the comments were saying, hey, does this work with Witch Hunter? And I would say, yes, it probably does. And not probably, yes, it will, but I'm not going to give a guide on the Witch Hunter because I'm not the Witch Hunter. I'm Gemling, and I have not tested it. Maybe I will in the future create another Merc and do Witch Hunter with the same build, so I can describe that to you guys in a video. So right now, just to give you some gem links, I'm doing Galvanic shards, obviously, with conduction for more shock chance, attack speed with martial tempo, lightning exposure for lightning exposure, and I'll get into that in a second, and primal armament for the more weapon elemental damage. So the reason why I'm going for exposure is because so to give you some background, in PoE 1, there was the ability for you to puncture res through to the negatives, right? Or not puncture, but reduce their enemy resistances, or penetrate them is the word I'm looking for, beyond 0 into the negatives. That is not the case in PoE2. In PoE2, you are only penetrating res until it gets to 0. Once it gets to 0, lightning pin no longer works. So we need to introduce an exposure element, lightning exposure, to get the resistances to the negatives. So in this case, I have slotted in lightning exposure. Obviously, it reduces our damage a little bit, but because the lightning exposure is so powerful, we more than make that up with putting them into the negative res. Shock burst rounds, you have ammo conservation, which I recently switched to. Before, I was using a different support, which was you reload, and whenever you reload, however many bolts you reload is how much more damage you get. That's great. That was only like 17% damage because I have 17 rounds in. So I figured 25% chance to not consume a bolt would essentially give me 17 times 25 or times 0.25. It'd give me a little bit more damage. Plus, it's a little more consistent than having to wait until I reload. Plus, I'll get into this, but I have emergency reload, which improves that damage even further. Martial tempo with more attack speed, and nimble reload so that we can reload quicker and really chunk those bosses down, or heavy rares. I'm using Herald of Thunder with cannibalism. This is important because there is not a lot of ways for us to get sustain on the build, minus life regen on our gear, life regen in the tree, max life on our gear, right? The life regen and the life regen rate can help, but that's not the direction I went. I went for recover on kill. Because I'm Gemling and I'll get into this in a little bit, because I have dual support skills, I can use 2 different support skills, or 2 of the same support skills in multiple gems. I'm using 2 cannibalisms to get 8% of life recovered on kill. I have lightning infusion on Herald of Thunder, and I'll get into that in a second, and electrocution buildup for Herald of Thunder's hits. I think electrocute is not the right play because it only applies to the daggers, or the bolts, sorry, that come down. I will be switching this out later. I'm still doing some testing. So with lightning infusion, there is, and I'll show you this on the tooltip. There is a mechanic in the game where if you have an aura that includes the tag of attack, you can use lightning infusion or any infusion to support it. In this case, it supports attacks. In the case with Herald of Thunder, when you slot in lightning infusion, You'll see my damage right here. It's 1090. The moment I slot in Lightning Infusion, it increases my damage by 25% on the tooltip. Actually, it looks like it's even more than that. So this is what I think might be a bug. That's an asterisk. I don't really know, but because Herald of Thunder is a persistent buff, adding in Lightning Infusion increases the damage of Galvanic Shard and also Shock Burst rounds, as you can see. Go from 3638 to 4789. And that's not the real damage. That's just accounting for the fact that you could be shooting without the burst, right? I believe. Moving on, I'm using Overwhelming Presence so that I can reduce their stun threshold or their elemental element threshold even further. This is not necessarily required. It's just very helpful. Cannibalism as a support for this one, and precision so I can get more accuracy rating. Precision may not be required. I was looking at my character sheet and it looks like my accuracy rating doesn't have to be more than this because I'm already at main hand chance to hit of within 2 meters at 100%, right? I'm already at 100% chance to hit. But I'm still keeping it in anyway because precision, I think in the later game, will have a higher effect because the mobs will be more evasive. I'm using Voltaic Mark to hit tanky rares or to cast on tanky rares or bosses so that it increases their ability to be shocked, and it increases the magnitude of the shock. In this case, magnitude being the effect of the shock. With this, I have persistence as a support. Execrate, which increases even more chance to inflict ailments. It does give you an 8-second cooldown. I literally just slotted this in. I haven't tested much of it, but it seems to be pretty solid whenever I use it because we don't have to use Voltaic Mark very often. We're just trying to curse those big mobs, because by the time that you curse them and you start burning them down, they're dead pretty quickly. And then lasting shock, because I want any shocks that do come from this to last a long time, because there's like a teeter-totter kind of game you have to play here on how much effect or how long the shock exists on the mob, or how effective you can reapply the shock afterwards. So I went for duration instead. Emergency reload, because this buff gives us increased damage, 26% more damage at level 15 for the active crossbow ammunition that we use to reload with. In this case, it's always going to be shock burst rounds. In my case it is. You can use emergency reload for galvanic shards, not required, because normally for trash, galvanic shards is enough by itself. I don't use emergency reload for it. It will probably be much more quality of life if you do, but that's up to you. Second is premeditation, because we want to make sure that anything that supports us is dealing more damage. And then I have Plasma Burst as a secondary attack. In the event that you are, or not in the event, whenever you get to a boss, what you're going to do is somebody said in the comments to try this, and I tried it, and it's really good. So let's say a boss starts and they have a small ramp up time to get into like where they're hittable. You can charge Plasma Blast in order to shock, because every time I've used Plasma Blast, the damage has been enough to instantly shock the boss or the rare that I use it on. Normally not rares, but bosses, and it's just a good damage dealer. You can add this into your rotation. I add it in sparingly. It kind of depends on the boss, or it depends on the mob that I'm attacking. Use it at your will. Right now, I'm testing with conduction for more chance to shock, and scatter shot, so that whenever I do attack, it does more damage. The cool thing is with this, because I am charging it and I have scatter shot, I can shoot and run and shoot the other two. So in the event that your first one fails to land, you have the other two afterwards that you can use to kind of navigate and target the boss. Okay, so that's about the skills. Right now, what I'm getting into is I actually changed my my ascendancy. I took off level of skills and quality of all skills and went for additional skill slots and the two copies of the same support gem. This is probably the most overpowered ascendancy node on the tree. It is so good. Like normally, obviously in PoE1, you can use any support gem on any skill, but in PoE2, you are limited to only using one. In this case, this is one of the reasons why this ascendancy is so good. So I went for this. Works out awesomely. Plus the travel nodes, because attributes seem to be a really big problem in PoE2, like being able to get them and keep them, and then having to, you know, if you ever get to a point where you're like, hey, I need a little bit more int, you have to change these nodes to int, right, instead of strength or dex. It's just a nightmare. So these 8%, this 4 and 4 actually has helped a ton for me to be able to wear int gear because I have barely any int. I have 43. Tree is pretty I talked about this in the previous video. Tree is good. I went for attack speed, electrocution chance for shocked enemies, a little bit of shock spread. This is totally optional. I don't think you actually need this, but it's good to have. Weapon swap speed, because we're swapping between the weapons, which I'll get into how you set that up shortly. Crossbow reload speed, shock build up, damage pen or Ellie pen, chance to shock, more pen, and then lightning rod being our game changing notable. I went for blind on hit because it just improves our survivability, and the travel nodes give you attack speed. I then totally didn't see this until after I released the video, but there's a crossbow wheel down here, you know. So sorry, I should have brought this up before. I would have actually taken out some of the notes to come here almost immediately. So damage with crossbows, we get 15% chance for crossbow attacks and not consume a bolt, which then increases the it helps improve the ammo conversion or conservation that we have on shock burst rounds, and full salvo, which in just increases our damage by 50% as long as we are swapping between two different ammo types. And in our case, this is very helpful during bosses, right? We shoot, we shock, and then we swap, and then we burst down. And by then we've got the 50% increased damage. I went down here and took the Giant Slayer node because it gives us 20% increased chance to inflict the ailments, as well as damage with hits. This is super helpful. I haven't tried without having this node, so if you don't want to path all the way, or if you don't want to path down here and you want to go somewhere else, that's probably fine. But the 25% damage and the increased chance to inflict elements is just chef's kiss. I went ahead and took some more damage with hits against enemies affected by ailments because we're doing a bunch of ailments, plus we get 15% increased duration. I went for the lightning nodes here for shock duration and magnitude of the shock. I'm then going to path up. I found this node, Wild Storm, which is super cool with the lucky hit chance, because the max damage that I get from Wild Storm can drastically increase the damage that we're going to deal because of the fact that we roll twice. And if you don't know what the lucky hits mechanic is, I'll explain it. Lucky hits are you attack, and the game determines whether or not you are going to have a higher number based on two rolls. So if let's say you roll a 100 damage hit, or you have a shot that does on one roll 20 damage and on another roll 50 damage. Well, it's going to take the higher of the two. It's going to do the 50 damage. I looked at possibly just anointing this on my amulet, but it requires 2 distilled isolations, which are, I think they're considered like gold oils in PoE1, one of the hardest or the rarest ones to get. I have a fear already. I've been doing some delirium. That's fine. So I've got that. But right now I'm going up to travel here. It's a lot of points to just get this, but I'm not going to care about consuming a shock because I'm not consuming. I'm going to go for Lightning Pin, and Wildstorm until I get those that anoint going. Just to let you know, some things you want to look for on your jewels are going to be magnitude of shock and attack speed. Accuracy rating is nice. This jewel dropped in maps. I just went ahead and slotted it in. And this one, actually, this one's not great. This one's good. So I have my mark, cast speed, attack speed, lightning pin, and damage with crossbows. This dropped from a friend of mine dropped it, and he gave it to me with 3 mods. I ended up slamming the mark skill cast speed, which was just the icing on the cake. Okay, what else? Got the skills. Okay, so my gear. So right now I've got obviously 2 crossbows. I bought another crossbow online through the trade site. This one seems to be a little higher physical damage than I had originally thought would be helpful on the build. The mod that's missing here is percent increased weapon elemental damage. I could not find one that was within reasonable price to have both high physical damage with the LE damage mod, but this is what I came to. So I tried to go high physical damage, putting in the 2 increased physical damage runes. That has been very good. My damage is a lot better with this versus my other bow, or my other crossbow, which was just high weapon elemental damage, because we already get increases in the tree. Then my swap is just, this is for shock burst rounds. This one is just more like, a lot of lightning damage, some more physical damage, and life per enemy hit. How about that? This is not necessary. So Cloak of Flame, for those of you who don't know, Biz damage converted to an element is super powerful. It was in PoE1, and I think it's also very powerful in PoE2. What this cloak does is it takes any physical damage that I take. This includes all types. I believe it would be bleeding, corrupted blood, and physical hits or physical spells, right? All of that is now, or 40% of that is taken as fire damage, which is then further mitigated by my fire res, which is super, super good. If you can get yourself a Cloak of Flame, you will feel tankier almost immediately over just a regular res and life chest piece. I corrupted this and got energy shield. That's not important. The extra energy shield just means we have extra life, right? Effective hit pool. And then I put 2 12% cold res runes in it because I needed the cold res. Same for this, or not same for this, but I bought this helmet, tri-res with rarity of items found. I actually had a high chaos res roll on this helmet. You'll notice that there's no life. I wanted the chaos res on it, and then whenever I corrupted it, I replaced the chaos res with fire res, which I didn't need. That's a whole nother story. But I did need the extra cold and lightning, so I put in a soul core of however you can pronounce that. For my gloves, I have tri-res gloves with fizz damage to attacks. Fizz damage to attacks is helpful, not required, but you do want to make sure that you're trying to cap your res as quickly as possible, so that your defensive, your early entry defensive mechanic is done, which is your resistances. I have armor on this. This is no big deal. I actually corrupted this for +1 frenzy, which does nothing for the build. I may end up selling these on the market because frenzy charges are helpful for bow builds, right? For the ranger. Slotted in cold resistance just because I needed it. My boots can definitely be replaced. I found some 25 movement speed boots that dropped that had fire res on them. I didn't really need much more fire res than what was put on here, but the life regen and the stun threshold are fairly okay. The life regen, I mean, it's a good stat, but I'm not stacking it, so it's not very helpful. And then I slotted lightning res in the boots for extra lightning res. I found a belt that had chaos res and life. Not as much life as I was expecting, but it's good. I will likely slam this with an exalt maybe once or twice, depending on what the first slam entails. I have an amethyst ring for the chaos res. I found one with all res on it, and the rarity, and we kind of went nuts. And by we, I mean me and a friend of mine. He was like, "Hey, just go ahead and start slamming it." And so I slammed it, got the fizz damage and fire damage to attacks, and then the leech was last. So very very interesting ring. The all res is super helpful. Obviously, you can only get all res on rings or jewelry, minus belts. You might be able to get it on belts. I don't know. I can check. Gold ring for rarity. It dropped with life, some dex and some int, and then I think I slammed lightning res on this. The extra damage to attacks is always helpful. It's not necessary, or it's not like important until you get later to have the extra flat, but it's still there. It's great. I got a solar amulet because I needed the extra spirit. For another variation that I was trying, but now I no longer need the spirit. You don't need to go for a solar amulet. You just need to have you just need to have finished all of the spirit bosses, the King of the Mists and the Bog boss, so you can get all the extra spirit, like the base spirit that you would get from the quests. Went with life, accuracy rating. The all attributes was super important, and the dex was kind of like an extra, and the little bit of chaos res is not shirked away from. I'm running a poison charm or antidote charm because there is some issue with the build on kind of getting one shot from poison damaged mobs. I don't know if that's expected or if it's an overtuned mechanic with, or overtuned mobs that are shooting poison. But I tried ascending and got one shot by the boss at the end of the sanctum, or the ascension for the Baranis, which I'll show you. This was what I ran. Baria, sorry. I got to the very very end. The boss just shanked me with poison. Bam! I was super dead. So yeah, and then obviously, life and mana flask. These are just whatever you need. As you can see, I only have one mod on this. I can add another mod, which I'll do right now. Cool, increase recovery rate, no big deal. So let's go ahead and start a map, and I will show you what this looks like. Doing tier 4s. So also, just to let you know, I'm heading towards this. I don't exactly know what it does. Well, it's the Burning Monolith, but a friend of mine had mentioned, hey, you should head towards this to start the quest. There's a quest that activates from this, that once you enter, and I don't exactly know what happens, but you get a quest state that says, hey, you need to go find keys. So have no idea what this does. I haven't looked it up, but it is something that you should try to find on your map as you map. Nope. Yeah, sometimes you don't even need to use truck burst rounds. But one thing I do want to note, just to make sure I bring it up, I don't know if I brought it up earlier with cannibalism. If for those of you who want to go the other Ascendency, I can't remember it right now, having just the one skill or the one support with one cannibalism is probably also pretty good, or is decent enough for sustain to get you started until you start doing start getting other like life on hit, life on kill type stats on your gear. Let me find a tanky rare. Oh, there's one. So here we go. See? Bear is dead. I probably won't complete this map because it just takes a long time to complete these maps, but I will do a little bit more, maybe do 1 or 2 more rares, and then move on to, I'm going to go kill Doriani, which is the final boss of the campaign. Also, for those of you on PC, I'll put a link in the description. There is a loot filter that you can use to help improve your... That one was a little harder to kill. You dropped an exalt. Awesome. There is a loot filter that will help improve, like whenever you drop items, they show up and are a little bit easier to see rather than you having to search for and look at the names of items to see if they're worth anything, right? Or hover over them. And that does improve your map time considerably. And I'll put a link to that loot filter in the description. It's made by Neversink. He owns Filter Blade, or him and his team work on Filter Blade, which is a PoE1 like automated loot filter tool. So yeah, I think I'm good enough here. We'll go ahead and leave. Okay, and I will skip to the part where I get to the boss. See you then. All right, here we are at the boss.
So, at the eve of the end, the demon of Hatsu.
Now, obviously, this is level 64, and I'm level 74, and I have pretty good gear. So take this with a grain of salt. I'm gonna apply my curse or my mark. Once I get this, I then just burn him down until he phases.
I can't give up. I must save my people.
Know why we're here. It happened. It cannot be stopped.
No, I will succeed.
All right, gonna recast my mark.
Preparing for you for years. Inconceivable. You will pay for this.
There you go.
Do not fail.
And he's dead. Oh, he wasn't there yet. Nice. All right, so those were the bosses. Thank you so much for sticking around this long. If you have any questions, please post them in the comment section below of the video. I will also link my Twitch in the description in case you want to ask those questions live. Hope you have a great day, and we'll catch you in the next one.